Hello everyone, welcome to Hybrid Budgets. This video is essentially my debt confession. I'm really nervous about doing this video. I said, oh, I'll put it up like straight away, and I filmed it once and everything was out of shot, so you can't see, but I've had to put like post-it notes just to make sure it's not, because I'd literally filmed this whole thing and it was all to the right. Then I started crying because I got really upset at how bad the situation I'd got in, and then oh my gosh, it was just all a mess. So I've just been putting it off, and I was like, right, I just need to get on and do it. So yeah, this is my debt confession video. So in this video, it's going to be basically looking at the debts I have to date, how I'm going to prioritise the debts I've got, in what order I'm going to do them, and then also a bit of a forecast matrix I've done on Excel. To basically say, okay, if I paid off minimum payments, what would my debt look like? If I didn't pay off minimum payments, if I extra paid on ones, what would that look like as well? So yeah, feel free to watch along if you find it useful. I'll put a bit of a disclaimer on. I'm on a reasonable, well, I say reasonable, a very reasonable salary, and me and my partner have just moved in as well. So as a result, my bills have split. I used to be single, but I used to live by myself, so I used to have to look after all my bills. Whereas now I've got a very good salary and my partner's taken over some of the bills, so if anything I do have more income that I can put towards paying off this debt. So some of the figures are going to be quite large, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but obviously you could hopefully apply this video to your own sort of set of circumstances is what I'm hoping. But anyway, I'll get into it because I'm just rabbiting on now because I'm just obviously really nervous about it. So I'm going to start off with what the sort of like goal was. Sorry, I'm literally like covered in post-it notes everywhere. Hopefully that is in okay and you can read it. What I'll do is I'll zoom in actually to the bit we need. So, according to my financial plan, my financial game plan, I'm putting money in towards my emergency fund anyway. So I'm trying to get that to 3 months fixed cost in a high interest savings account, and can release it the next day. I've got the high interest savings account. The £50 is all I can put in per month into that account anyway, and then any extra overpayments in that I'm basically putting into a slightly separate account with a slightly less percentage interest, but I am saving for that. Employee match pension I'm on with, that comes straight out of my salary, so that's sorted. So now I'm looking at this high interest debt. And I'm prioritising paying off debts that are plus 7%. And I am in the situation where I do have multiple cards. So you can either avalanche your card payments to any of the ones with higher percentage to the smaller percentage, or you can snowball your payments. So start with the smallest and then gradually work larger. Obviously, once you've paid off your smallest debt, that amount will then go on to your bigger debt and hence snowball. I'm going to start by avalanching, and then it's going to basically form into a bit of a snowball, and I'll show you that later when I go through the Excel. And then basically what I did previously, this is back in January I think, just even seeing these numbers is actually making me feel quite sick. So I put down all my debts I had, the amount of debt I've got on them, the available credit left on the credit card, the percentage I've utilised of that credit card, the current interest they're at, their minimum payments, when they're due to end. And when I say goal end date, this for me is when their like promotional period ends. So a lot of times you get like 27 months at 0% balance. This is when that period ends, and then future interest, basically be aware of where that was. And this is me sort of roughly working out how much I would have to pay per month to get that value down. If you look at these are, I won't say aren't reasonable, they are payments, but they are a lot. But if I'm updating it now for May, bear in mind I've only been paying in the minimum on January. I was trying to get everything else aligned up a bit more. So I've only been putting in minimum payments, so I haven't been putting in these. So as a result, that's amount is going to go up. So I'll explain through that. And then what I basically worked out is a general note is I want my percentage utilised to be below half, so less than 50%. So this one's not looking too bad, but these ones are all quite steep. If it's more than half, it can negatively affect your credit score. And so my priority is undertaken in priority date order and percentage interest. So what I'm doing is I've based my priority here on which ones are basically their goal end date is coming up first. And then to snowball or to avalanche, so I'm doing minimum payments equate to £250 per month, any extra overpayments in priority. So in that sense, I'm doing an avalanche because I'm going from like the highest percentage to the lowest in percentage. But when I go through my matrix on Excel, I'll explain why at one point I then shift from that and I go from like the smallest balance to the highest balance. Partly because there's just so much on that card that I couldn't do it by the goal end date, so it made more sense to swap pay one fully down when it has a smaller amount on it, and then the one which has a larger amount on, I then look at basically doing a balance transfer. And then my goal is my MBNA end date is August, which is therefore, when I was doing this, it was January, so it was 8 months, which was £514 per month. I had not put that in, so it's even more than that now. So this is my one in January. I only did the one, and yet I'd actually put stuff that was like changeable, you know, like per month. So what I've done is I've just, for May, I've got exactly, almost the same form. This is just on my notepad. And I'm just going to fill it like the update for May, and I'll just go through exactly what I've done previously, but like step by step. So hopefully you can do it with your own. I will say it was really difficult to do this, partly because everything is everywhere, and it does take, like me writing it in doesn't take too much time. It's probably going to be quite a long video because I'm, like I say, rabbiting on. But what does take the time is getting it all together, almost like getting your head out the sand a bit and sort of seeing it fully as it is. It was only until I did that I didn't really notice how much debt I was in. And that's a really difficult bit. And also like trying to find all the goal dates and trying to find when your promotional period ends. Tesco was really difficult. I literally had to work it back from when I got the offer, and I got it through Experian. It was one of the, compare the market type ones. And it was like, a 10-month offer or a 12-month offer, or 15, I think it was. And so I've like personally worked it back, so I'm still not sure if that goal end date is correct. So yeah, it takes a lot of time to do that, but I definitely recommend, like, it's quite a, cathartic process getting it all down, to be honest. But it does take time, and also it's really important to understand what your APR is. I've like been watching videos on APR and how it works and interest payments, and when I go through the Excel, I'll explain how I work it out, and you don't obviously necessarily need to yourselves. It's similar, but it just took me a lot of time to do it, so hopefully by watching this it will hopefully help other people. It doesn't need to. For me, this channel is more about keeping me in check. So yeah, anyway, I'll stop waffling on, I'll start going through this, and then then I'll go to my Excel and show how I'm hopefully gonna pay it off. Right, so this is the one I've done for May. And like I say, I'm going to do this now like every month going forward. In fact, if I angle that, isn't it weird how you like write at an angle? Also, I've got the stand in the way. I'm so bad at technology. That yeah, I just struggle with this stuff. So yeah, MBNA 1. So this is really weird. So I've got it's the same credit card, but it's two different offers on the same credit card. So hence I've split these up. And again, I encourage you to do it, like, get the granularity out of every debt you've got, and then you can decide how you want to overcome it, if that makes sense. So like my MBNA 1 was a balance transfer, but my MBNA 2 was a money transfer. So the balance transfer was done on a pay a fee, like a percentage fee to do the transfer, but then the actual like monthly balance is like the monthly APR is 0%, whereas my money transfer was done on, it's free to transfer it over, but then every month you pay a percentage interest on it. But in my case, that percentage interest was less than the one I was doing on my other credit card, so hence it still made sense to do it. But yeah, so these two are technically separate, but annoyingly they bill it all as one, so hence why I've got MB&A whole. But yeah, I just wanted to explain that in case that can be a bit confusing. So now on my MB&A one, I have £1,875.65, and on my money transfer I have £1,382.77. So that gives a grand total on my MB&A whole as £3,258.42. The total credit they have offered to me is basically how much I've got on that card available if I ever did need it, is £12,300. So therefore what I've got left available is obviously that figure minus that figure, which is £8,193 and 71 pence. I'm just going to do an arrow to show that that's for the same credit card. Therefore making the credit utilisation of 26%. So this one has gone down a lot. I say a lot since January. Yeah, so it was 33.38. Now it's 26, so that's gone down, which is good. My Tesco one, annoyingly that I've got Tesco one and two, is £4,569.50. Available on that one, I can do up to £5,800. Again, that figure minus that figure leaves £1,044.50. Therefore making that credit utilisation 79%. To work out your credit utilisation, it's the amount of credit you have divided by the available credit, the amount of credit you have divided by the total credit offered, times by 100 to make it percentage. And like I say, I sort of want to get this below 50% as a goal, like a mini goal. Tesco 2 is £2,700, 60 pence, no, £60.38, and I was offered £3,000 on this one. This was one of the latter ones I took out, and what I could borrow was a lot less at this point, because I took out quite a few of them in quick succession, because I paid for an extension, which you'll see on my mortgage, because I've got a second mortgage, but me being an absolute numped, I forgot about VAT, so which is obviously 20% of the overall cost. And then also it was an extension at the front, and when they did the front, the front of the house was like really mashed up because I had like a gravel drive. When they dug everything up, all the gravel was like dirty or muddy, and it just all mixed in. It was all a bit rank, so I did the front drive at the same time as well. Obviously couldn't afford it, so it was all done on like credit cards or money transfer cards, or a loan from mum and dad. And then also had some additional stuff done. So me and my partner have electric cars. Well, I've got a hybrid, my partner's got electric. So we got a pod point moved, and also what was it? Oh, cladding and something as well. So I took out 15 grand on a second mortgage, but actually the build itself came to more like 19 grand. And then I had the additionals, like I say, like the front drive as well. And also I took this out in, I think it must have been January last year, and then I didn't actually do the build until the autumn, so I chipped into that 15 grand doing up like a bathroom and stuff, so it became more, like as in I had the 15 grand in my account, but by the time I actually came to doing the build, I probably only had about 12 grand in the account, because I spent like 3 grand doing up the bathroom and finishing off some bigger jobs in the garden, you know, whilst I had the funds. So this is sort of, I guess I'm trying to make excuses as to why I've got into this pickle. More than a pickle, it's a travesty. But anyway, we live and learn. And it all sort of happened last year. Like before that, I wouldn't say I was good with money, but I was very like, oh, like I won't say I've ever been good with money, but like it sort of worked itself out, I guess. Like I say, I have like a quite generous salary, but I think with the cost of living and everything, I think between doing the extension and then also just like things becoming slightly more expensive, like and bills going up and everything going up, I don't think I realised how much like it was creeping into me actually not being able to afford the salary I had, and I wasn't like living within my means, if that makes sense. So like I was on an okay salary, but I'd eat out a lot and do loads of other stuff. And I was like, actually, if I'd looked at my salary and budget sooner, I think I would have seen that pattern emerge. Whereas probably every month I was like creeping over by like 100, £200. And because it was on a credit card, I didn't really see it. It was all just sort of merging into one. And it's soon at the point where the credit card became quite ridiculous. Like I'd had £1,000 on it or more, you know, like £2,000 for instance. Like that, I'd be like, okay, now I'll just do a money transfer, which was not sensible to do. I really recommend balance transfers. I think they're really good. However, they get you into a bit of a bad habit. I think actually what I need to do is be like, can I afford it anyway? Because again, what was happening, like I think one of these was probably a holiday we put on. We decided to go on a cruise with our friends, which was lovely, and I'm so glad we did it. But I hadn't budgeted for that holiday the whole year before, so I was putting literally the whole balance on, which obviously couldn't afford. So, which is daft because I probably could have afforded it. It just meant making sacrifices in other places. But anyway, I completely digress. I'll carry on. I think I'm just putting myself off writing this down because the next one's the big one. £6,207.84. The available credit on this one is 7,300. And therefore that leaves a remaining 8. Sorry, my phone ran out of juice. I think we got up to Virgin Pink is £6,207.84. I could have an available £7,300 for that one, meaning I had £837.50 left, so that's at 85% utilisation. My mum and dad lent me £2,000. There's obviously no total credit offered, it was £2,000. Available credit, again, it's not really applicable for this one. Current interest as well, it's at 0. I'll go through and do all those. Mortgage, so this mortgage too is my additional mortgage I used for the extension. So that's gone down £800, I think, since paying it off. And then my remaining mortgage is at £119,886.19. For the sake just so I've got like a debt summary, I'm only gonna count up. I say that, not that one obviously because that's a combined whole, so just these ones here, and they come to £22,054.56. And the current interest of all of these, bar the money transfer, is 0% because these are all 0% balance transfer cards. Sorry, that's a dash because it's different. Again, it's weird because it's merged, but they're billed different. 0%, 0%, 0%, and then this one's at 5.9%. Brill. Moving across. So I've also got a bit of a log of what the minimum payments are, so I think it's always quite useful to know what you're spending out each month. Sorry, you probably can't see it because it's slightly less colour. So minimum payment again is billed separately for these. So this one is £97.55. This one's £45.70. £27.60 and £62. There's no minimum payment for my mum and dad, and then my minimum payment on my mortgage I'm just taking as what they will bill me as. which obviously sort of is the minimum payment. Oh, sorry, that's 83. Goal end date. So these are the ones it's really quite difficult to. It should say it on your statement, but you might need to dig for these. So again, I'm going to put this so it's really easy to find. 20th there, 24th. That one's coming up soon. 22nd of the 10th. 25. So that's not as soon. Obviously, these are separate. This is it as a whole. This one's 24th, 01, 25, 16, 08, 25, and 23, 05, 25. And then obviously the mortgage ones aren't until way into the future. So what I've done next is I basically said, bear in mind we're in May 24 here. I've said like how many months is it until these goal end dates, because these don't, not that they don't mean anything, but I think sometimes seeing the months is a lot clearer. So this one's in 4 months. This one's not until 18. 9 months, 15 months, and 13 months. I'm not looking at obviously mum and dad for a while, and I'm not looking at, I sort of not looking at them in a while, but there's no goal end date, so there's no point putting the number of months. And again with the mortgage, it's so far in the future, and it's a secured loan, so I'm not as panicked about my mortgage. And then future interest. So this is what happens when the promotional period ends. It jumps up to 27.21%. Same for this one. This one goes up to 28.94. Same with this one. And 24.9%. So they're all around that between 25 and 30%. I don't know when I started these, so I'm going to question mark these and put them in later. And then what I've also, where was I? Started, I don't have the set date, and to be fair, it doesn't really matter so much to remove this column at some point. And the amount per month before goal date, you probably can't read that very well because it's quite light. So this is if I was to take the full amount of what I've got left to owe, if I divided it by the goal date, that's how much I'd need to pay per month, which isn't always feasible. But I'm going to just do it as a bit of a like incentive really. It might also scare me because I think some of these figures are going to be very high, but I just think it'd be quite a useful tool to know realistically how much I've got left and how much time I've got left, and if I might need to do another balance transfer in order to, you know what I mean, make it 0. Hope that makes sense. Right, so what I've done for this one is I'm going to take 4 as the amount of months I've got left, purely because the way this one works is, let me have a look. This one's at 5.9%. Let me see if I can scroll across. On zoom out actually. This one here is at, I'm not sure if you can see. Sorry, my holder is so rickety. This one's at 5.9%. So the way it pays off is it pays off with the highest percentage interest first. So all the monthly payments I'm paying to this one are only directly going to this one, even though this one technically has the longest time to pay off, if that makes sense. Whereas this one's only got 4 months of the promotional period, so I've actually not paid any of this off at all. What I need to do is pay this one off first in order to pay this one off, or wait till that promotional period and then it swaps. but it's a bit of a nose really, because ideally like that one is a lower interest, and I think it's charging me like £10 a month, maybe less than that on interest. I'll go through it in the Excel. So, you know, 18 months over the 4 months, it's quite, you know, because obviously when that jumps up to its 27.21%, it's going to be quite a big sum. So what I'm going to do is just say, look, I've got 4 months to pay all of it off. Might not be achievable, but I think realistically I just need to try and get this one down as much as possible. So sorry, this thing can be sometimes a little bit temperamental. So amount per month before goal end date. So with this one, with the full amount being £3,258.42 over 4 months, that comes to £814.61 per month. Sorry, I'm in the wrong column. £814.61. And then my next one is Tesco one at 4,500, and I need to pay that for 9 months, so that leaves £507.72. Next one is Tesco 2, so it's the slightly lower figure, and I've got 15 months to pay that one off, so that's £184.03. And then finally the Virgin one is the 6,207, and I've got 30 months to pay that one off, so that comes to £477.53. Obviously that would be starting from this month, so that would mean not only would I just be paying 814, I'd have to then pay the 500 and the 184 and the 477. Obviously that's not going to happen, but I just think it's quite a good way of then therefore like looking at your priority and be like, right, therefore this one is number one priority, and specifically I'm going to have to do MBNA 2, the money transfer first, in order to pay off the fourth one. So this is one, well, I'll call that 1 and 2. Oh, again, doing it in the wrong column. 1 and 2, with this one being the first priority. Which one, sorry, the one with 5.9% being first priority, this one being second priority, and then I'm going to gradually move down. So obviously then my second priority is the Tesco one, then it will be the Virgin, and then honestly I'm not with it today, and then it will be the Tesco 2, and then obviously these ones will carry on. So what I'm going to say for mum and dad is as soon as reasonably practicable, and then for my mortgage 1 and 2, I'm obviously going to focus on paying back my 15 grand one first, and then finally the larger figure first. So yeah, that is a whole is what I'm putting for my May debt tracker. I'm going to input this into the Excel. I've already inputted this in the Excel, and I'm going to go through that next. And it's basically going to work out, okay, realistically, if I'm paying off this one first, how can I pay off the next one? And if I only go with minimum payments, what will that look like in terms of like a forecast on my debt? So if that's of interest of you, yeah, please carry on watching. So now I've worked out my full debt in total. What I've done is I've set up a spreadsheet here. Sorry, I'm having to handhold this because there's no easy way of recording this. So what I've done is I've put in all the priorities I went through in the previous video for all the different debts I've got. So I've got my MBNA 1, 2, Tesco 1, 2, Virgin Pink, Mum and Dad, mortgage 1, 2. These are going to be slightly separate, obviously because they're mortgages, not debt. However, I'm using the same principle basically and working through how much I'll be paying off each month. So it looks like a super duper complicated Excel, whereas actually it's not that bad, and I think it's just, well, I say that, it's the way my brain works, but I don't know about anyone else. So what I've done is I've put in the amount of credit I've currently got. So let me try and zoom in. So for instance, the MBNA one, I've got £1,875.65. Like I say, that's at a 0% balance transfer though. MBNA 2 is £1,382.77 at 5.9%. and so on and so forth for all my other debts. Then what I've got is a column, a row that's got interest in, and this auto calculates. So the way you work out the interest given the APR is, I literally wrote this down because I knew I was going to forget, is your APR percentage, which is this one, divided by 365 days, well, 365 for the number of days in the year, because APR is for annual percentage rate. And then what I've done for monthly is the daily interest rate, which is this figure, which I've calculated in Excel, times by the amount I owe, times by 30. So it's like for the number of days, because that's a daily rate. That's quite a general calculation, because if your balance goes up and down, so for instance, if you've got a credit card like that you're spending on, it's going to be ever so slightly different. But because these balances are staying consistent and the same throughout the month, I can just go ahead and use that formula. And then what it does is therefore works out the interest per month. So this one is the only one really that's got any interest in, so I'll use this one as an example. So that month it was £6.71. The next month obviously it's going to be slightly less because I'm going to pay money towards it, and so on and so forth. And then what I've done is a line for my payment. So these are all the fixed payments that I put in. So all of these are the minimum payments at the minute. And like I say, my MBNA gets covered as one, weirdly, even though it's technically two different transfers. So what I've done is I've put in the minimum payments, and then it totals up at the end as the monthly payment in debt. So this also includes my mortgage as well. So for this month, I've already worked it out, so it's a slightly separate month. But the below month, what I tried to do for the next following months is I've set up a bit of a calculation here. So what I've done is I've done my take-home pay, which will go in this column here, my expenses, which I will add in here, but I'm not going to try and forecast what these are. I've set them all to 0 at the minute, and I'm going to budget with 0, and then if any extra come in, that's great, and I can add it to the debt payment and pay down. My fixed payments, which is not including mortgage and minimum payments, that's things like all my other type of bills, any subscriptions I've got, etc., any of those fixed payments. So they actually only equate, I say only, but in comparison to everywhere else it's a smaller figure, to £285. Credit card variable, so for this month specifically, I know I've got £770 coming out for my credit card. And then other variable, so I've budgeted £500, and then that gives me a total debt payment. So basically it's this column here plus this column here minus these ones here give me what I could pay off in debt if I wanted to, but like I say, that also includes my mortgage. So what I've done here is I've added up all these lines all the way across, and that gives me the sum here. And then the difference is this value here. So this is telling me, in this instance, I can pay another £809 to debt, as long as I limit my credit card variable spending and my other variable spending to these figures here. So that's what I'm going to do. So originally I was paying in these payments, which, like I say, are the minimum payment. So what I've done for next month is I've rounded these up, so I pretty much budget this amount anyway. It's only a few pounds for these three anyway, but I thought actually if I pay this as a fixed, technically the minimum payments go down the more you pay off anyway. So I was like, actually if I keep those as fixed, I've already got those budgeted in, so they can stay the same. And then if I was to keep this as the fixed amount I was paying, I'm just going to scroll this down, this means that as I pay it off, it'll only really be May 25 that I take down the MBNA 1 and I actually transfer the money I'm paying off to MBNA 2. So I'm paying off 0 on my MBNA 1, £120 each month on my MBNA. Sorry, getting confused with the priority. I pay off 0 on my MBNA 1. I'm paying all my money to MBNA 2 because it's got the higher percentage, because everything else is at 0%. But as you can see, I don't really actually pay that off until May 25. Meanwhile, all this interest is accruing because what happens is come August, I think it is, this is when the promotional balance finishes. So it's 0 here, and then it basically, sorry, that's my computer, it then the 27.21 kicks in. So then really what I should be paying, and I think it will automatically do it anyway, the 120 will end up paying off this one, the MBNA one. However, if I carry on down, my other credit cards come into play. So for instance, my Tesco one will start charging me 28.9% interest. So obviously this isn't feasible and I can't just pay off the minimum payments. So what this spreadsheet can tell me is how much I can pay additionally each month. So currently this is working out to say, okay, well actually in these months you can pay almost another £700 off. Let's, call it like 675 for instance. So what's really good is I've formatted this to basically set this up. So if I now put in, so for this month I've got a slightly higher salary because I've got some expenses coming in. No, I don't. It's just my salary that's coming in. I haven't adjusted my pension payment yet. So in the next months I'm putting quite a bit more towards my pension, just to keep it below the 40% tax bracket. So for £3,400 coming in, I can basically afford to pay off another £800 in on my credit card. So I've got my 120. I'm going to put another £800 on there and see what that looks like. So you can see that's obviously drastically reduced it because I'm actually paying in £920 that month. This month I've already, sorry, I should go back. May 24, I have said, let me get my budget in. All these variable expenses I transferred over, they're staying the same, but these ones, my sinking funds, I did reduce. So I've got an additional £200 here that I was going to put in my emergency fund, but I've kept that to zero. Holiday I was going to transfer over £275, whereas I've actually only transferred over £50. Similar with Christmas, I was going to transfer over £250. Instead, I'm only going to transfer £50. And gifts, I was going to transfer over £100. Instead, I'm not transferring over anything. I was already going to transfer over £150 anyway into my debt overpayment. So actually, when I add those up, it's about another £850 I can add in. So for this one, again, I'm going to do very similar and say equals 120 plus 850. And then here, now I've done the May month, apologies, should have done this earlier. I'm looking at this. This is now going into negative figures, so I don't need to do that. So I'm going to just get the sum of this one, which is £421.51. And then I'm looking across and it's saying, well, actually, you can still afford to pay £507 into debt. So I'm just going to do equals £507 into this one over here. So what that's doing is saying, okay, this MBNA 2 now is at zero balance, so I don't need to pay any more on that. So working off my new priority, I should then be paying all my money to MBNA 1, which is my second priority. So now I will take this to zero because we don't need to pay that off because it's already got a zero balance in. What I was paying was £120 anyway, so I'm going to just do that for going forward and put these in here. And then I'm going to look over to my right and see, and so this one, for instance, it balances out to 55p. I've got extra here. I can afford to put in another £679. So I'm going to do 120 plus £679 in, and that pays down. Now you can see this is where that 27.21% starts hitting. I'm not in the position where I can obviously pay that all off at the minute, so I'm going to be getting that £12 interest. But there's no point doing a transfer or anything like that if I can pay it off in the next month. So this is why it's really good, because you can be like, okay, actually, this is where I'm losing interest, and is it worth doing a transfer or not? So again, I've put in a £120 payment, which is my minimum payment anyway. I'm going to go across to the right, and it's again saying, actually, you can afford £769. So again, I'm going to do 120 plus £769. again, this is now making a negative figure. There's no point having that in the negative. So what I'm going to do is actually only put in £582.39, which will empty that account and make that go to zero. What was that figure again? 582.39. And then I'm going to look at what is my next priority, and my next priority is Tesco's. So I'm paying that full balance off now, so that's zero, so I don't need to pay £120 off this month. So basically my MB&A 1 and 2 are paid off. That should just equal zero. But again, how much have I got left? I've got £216 left that I can now pay additional to my Tesco one. So if I do the 50 plus the £216 is £266 I'm paying additional on my Tesco one card. And again, that equates to, okay, I'm 67p in balance. So I'm going to obviously carry on and do that the full amount of all my payments. Sorry, let me move that out of the way, to work out my debt pay down. And essentially, if you're already paying the £30 anyway, you just add it on. So I'm going to do it in the order the balance transfer offers end. So as I was filling it in, so for instance, again, for my Tesco one, I've got to the end of the payment. So I was managing to put in £850 to pay off that. This jumped up a lot, and this is why I was just going to show it. Because I was already paying £120 here. Obviously I'm not having to pay that at all now, so that can go directly into this payment. Similar here, so I'm about to pay this payment off here, which is £775. Bear in mind I was paying £850 into this column anyway. So I'm not paying that £50 anymore. I'm not now paying this £775 anymore, or the £850 I was paying. So what I can do now is, so that comes to about £850, which comes out to £3.54 here, but I'm going to leave it at that. There's no point paying like 103. I'll keep it to round numbers. Again, I can take all these out here because I don't need to pay this off anymore because that one's all paid. And basically, and this is why it's called an avalanche, because what you'll do is you'll pay off your highest interest, and then what you were paying is a minimum payment. All those minimum payments can now all add up. So again, you can see here now I can pay £850 on top of the £30. So last month I could only afford £850, now I can obviously afford £880 because I was already paying it anyway. So again, do similar here. And it gradually goes down and down. Again, this one, it's at the end of its balance transfer. Well, it's the end of its account. Sorry, I need to put in, £662.38. And then I can transfer it on. So another £216 can go into this one, plus the 65. So yeah, this is basically how you work out your avalanche. So I'm sort of working this way. Non-intentionally, I think it's just the way I wrote out the order, but yeah, it's gradually building down and down. But the only issue is now I'm facing is my Virgin Pink, which I'm now obviously paying more to. That's, sorry, zero, because I don't have any need to pay that one off anymore. Zero again, these can be zero. So again, that additional £80 I was paying on minimum payments can go straight onto the other credit card, which is really good. As I'm looking at this one is going to come to the end of its balance transfer period. So what I need to do is review this realistically and see what I can do. And I think, although I'm trying to get rid of all my balance transfers, it's worth for this Virgin one. Like, I'm not going to be able to pay it down £5,000 by the end of the period. So yeah, here it is. It comes up as 24.9%. So in this month I'm paying £103.81 in interest, and the next month it's not much better, it's £104. So what I need to do is look at basically doing a balance transfer to move it to a 0% card. Obviously that usually comes with a fee, or it's the percentage interest is a lot smaller, so it might be like 5% as opposed to 20% to do the transfer. So what I'm going to do is fill out the rest of it and show you what I'm going to do in this instance. Right, the Virgin Pink is now actually at the 24.9% APR, but I've still got 5.2k basically left on it. So that's charging me almost over £100 every month in interest. That's ridiculous. So what I need to do is look for a balance transfer at this point. So this will be May next year. I'm looking for some now just to give me a bit of an idea of what I might be looking for. I can get one for 27 months at a 3.5% fee. So what I'm going to do is, for the sake of just forecasting, and like I say, this is literally next year, so I might not be able to get that next year, and or it might be more, it might be less, but just for now I'm going to put it in just so I can get an idea. So I'm saying I need to put a 3.5% fee. So I've got the figure that charges me the interest anyway. So for this month it'll be both of it. It'll be the normal standard interest plus the fee, which is 3.5%, which is 0.035 of my total figure, which in this instance is the £5,000, and add that in. It's £289, but actually if I did it the month before, I don't need to pay interest because it'll obviously be at 0%. So let me knock that off and show you what just the fee is. So the fee's coming out as £182.52. So arguably, yes, that amount is higher, but this means that all these other months, this here will actually be at 0% rather than 2.4. So if I knock those to 0, obviously the interest isn't accruing now. Again, I'm going to go through and just knock these all to 0 now, and then I can work out the rest of the pay down on this. So again, here it's saying I can put in 900 and essentially 44. I'm going to round that up to 945. And pay down the rest of this balance here. You can see it's gradually going down and down. Obviously here I just need to change it to 0, and here I just change it to 0. And again, I've reached the end of paying this amount off. So, sorry, I'm swaying all over the place with this thing. So rather than 945, if I do £672.36, that account is essentially closed, balance 0, so I don't need to pay any more off on that. So that's coming to November 25. So that basically means all this 20 grand worth of debt will be by next year. So we're currently in 24, so yeah, it'll be next November, so about a year and a half to get that all paid down, which I think is pretty good. That's obviously stating my privilege here, that's because my salary is a reasonable amount, and it will mean keeping to a reasonably tight, strict budget on my variables and my credit card amounts. So I've been budgeting £300 for work expenses, so they will get reimbursed, so potentially that's not too ridiculous. However, other variables are only doing £500, so I might have to review that. Obviously I've got Christmas between there, I've got summers between there as well, so I still want to be pragmatic and make sure in the effort to pay down all this debt I'm not actually going to get into more debt, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's November 25, and then what I could do is then say, okay, well I can either use the rest of this fund here, so I've got £271, well that logically should go to my mum and dad. So for priority, I've just said as soon as reasonably practicable. What I'm going to try and do is the odd £10 here and there put in, just so it just chips away at it. Obviously it's at 0% now, but I want to give it to them as a lump. Originally we looked at doing like £100 a month payback, but I was a bit conscious that I was like, well actually that's quite a big amount that's worth going somewhere else. They agreed and said, yeah, just pay it as a lump, it'll be more beneficial to them as a lump than just like a little drip feed. So I'll drip feed it myself into a separate account like a Monzo pot, and then I can transfer it over to them. So that's how I've basically worked out my pay breakdown budget. So again, similar here, it's saying I've got £900 excess, but you know, I don't know what's going to happen here. These might go up, but at least it's sort of a bit of a dynamic debt breakdown graph. graph, like matrix, I guess you call it. So I can adjust these numbers here, adjust these numbers here, and reasonably look at how much I can overpay each month. This is very much a forecast. This is like best case scenario. Things will get in the way inevitably with life and everything, but at least I can stay on track and be like, okay, if I stick to this budget, you know, by November 25 I could potentially be debt free. And not only debt free, it's then suggesting that like there's an extra £900 there a month that I can put towards stuff. So emergency fund seems logical then straight away, and then obviously I can start to pay down some of my mortgages, like mortgage 1 and 2. So again, they're charging me quite a lot on interest, so it makes sense to try and overpay it. This one was a smaller mortgage I took out for the extension, so again it makes sense to try and get that paid down as soon as practicable. Well, I hope that makes sense. I know it's quite a confusing spreadsheet, but I just quite liked it. It broke it down for me. I made the sense of the APR because I didn't really know how those got worked out, and I was a bit like guessing how much interest would be charged per month. Like obviously I can work out 0% interest, but when it came to the other APRs, it sort of flummoxed me a bit. So by breaking it down, I was like, okay, actually this makes a bit more sense. And also by linking it, you can see how much you can then avalanche your payments. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. If you need any help or guidance on setting this up, let me know, but hopefully this video's been able to explain it for you. Yeah, well, I hope to see you guys soon. Obviously I've got more videos coming up, like monthly pay downs and stuff, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon. Bye.